And then the second verse says, from where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. My help does not come from the White House. My help does not come from the Congress, the Senate, the State House, the county executive complex. It comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. So I think, a great way to process when you're watching on election night is imagine that in addition to your TV set to whatever channel you want to watch to get election results, imagine that there's a satellite link on your TV to heaven, and it's focused on God on the throne. And watch as election results come in. When you're happy about the results, God's not going to be doing a touchdown dance, right? And when you're not happy, he's not going to have left the throne.
Hey, look out. It's Faith Talk Today. I'm Rick Probst. Well, it is that time of year, perfect time of year for an election. What's that you say? You didn't know there was an election? Where have you been? Hey, it is Rick Probst. We're so glad that you're here watching and listening to us. Hey, we've been able to snag this guy again. He's amazing. We're going to talk to him in a second about the election and more. Gary Schneeberger, assistant to the president for media relations at Focus on the Family. He's also an author and speaker, and he's got an article, Washington Times article. He's going to talk about, he's already written about what we're going to talk about here in just a few. So hang on. He's going to help us get a handle on about this election. What is important about this election as believers? Well, we'll find out. But first, thank you for downloading all the podcasts. The numbers are in. They won't show me the numbers because they're afraid of inflation. My head inflating. But hey, that's not what's important. It's the guest, of course. Thank you so much for downloading them and sharing them. Continue to do that, if you will, faithtalkatlanta.com and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Gary, I have to do that. That's in my contract. Gary Schneeberger, always a great guest. Gary, how are you, first of all?
I am doing great, Rick, and thank you again for having me on. It is a pleasure to speak with you, to your audience.
You are a wealth of knowledge, and it's not all in the head. You're just full of heart, and we enjoy being with you. And you're a funny guy, too, and that just kind of culminates into you. We want to talk a little bit about this election. Yes. Is there election? Absolutely. Anxiety.
I've heard something about that. I've heard that there is an election somewhere.
Yeah. Listen to this. Anxiety, confusion, fear, TV ads. I can't watch YouTube without somebody popping up. And then I check the mail every day because I'm 64, and that's what you do when you're 64. I get a mailer every single day.
I do too.
Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. I'm keeping them because later on I'm going to sell them on eBay. But I am keeping them. But listen, Donald Trump is going to cut Social Security. He's a dictator, blah, blah, blah. Kamala Harris is going to release murderers on the streets and kill all our kids. Gary, help me. Help us all. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it is right. The closer we get to November 5th, the more crazy it gets in terms of the messages. I'm exactly like you. I go to the mailbox every day, and every day there's something about some candidate, not just the presidential candidates, but here in Wisconsin, the Senate candidates, even the state house candidates. So, I mean, it is crunch time. And at this time, people, I haven't heard the phrase used much, but there's that October surprise, right? That late in the campaign thing that that the candidates are trying to gin up to sort of tip things in their favor. So don't be surprised, folks, if in the next less than a month now or 2 weeks now, you're going to see some other things come up that are just, kind of shocking, as they like to say, even when they're not shocking, to be honest.
Gary Schneeberger with us. He's giving some ins and outs here on how to survive the election. Even if our candidate doesn't make it to the White House, we can live with that, right? Because there's some biblical scripture says that we are to pray for whomever is in the office. I know you know this already, Gary, but I guess for me, I've been following politics since my 20s, and I don't remember politics being so brutal and polarizing in the sense that it separates friends and family
Yeah.
these days. So, hey, it's not that important, right? I mean, come on. Whoever gets in, we want to make the right choice. But if our choice doesn't get in, we can pray. Give us more insight into that.
Yeah. I mean, I like to go to Psalm 121, verses 1 and 2. And in the ESV, here's what verse 1 says. It says, I lift my eyes to the hills. Now, it's important to note, Rick, that the H in hills is not capitalized. It's not, I lift my eyes to Capitol Hill, right? I lift my eyes up. And then the second verse says, from where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. My help does not come from the White House. My help does not come from the Congress, the Senate, the State House, the county executive complex. It comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. So I think, a great way to process when you're watching on election night is imagine that in addition to your TV set to whatever channel you want to watch to get election results, imagine that there's a satellite link on your TV to heaven, and it's focused on God on the throne. And watch as election results come in. When you're happy about the results, God's not going to be doing a touchdown dance, right? And when you're not happy, he's not going to have left the throne. He's going to be still on the throne. That is an important perspective to have, because you're exactly right. Politics are important. Who we elect is important. Standing for your values and voting is critically important. But at the end of the day, our hope and our help does not come from government.
Gary Schneeberger with us, assistant to the president for media relations at Focus and author, speaker. Read his Washington Times article about this. We're going to just scratch the surface. He's going to get in more, detail about what to do about praying. And it's so well said, Gary. How do you handle it, Gary, when you have friends and family and say, hey, Gary, you don't understand, Gary. Gary, you don't understand. This is the country could be in jeopardy here. What do you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, a good perspective for me, the way that I do it, and that's both face to face and keyboard to keyboard. It gets a lot easier to be kind of nasty on keyboards because you're not looking at people. So social media can be really difficult. But my goal in interactions is to win a friend, not win an argument. To keep that relationship. I mean, I have heard stories of families split apart because of election differences. I've heard stories of good friends who no longer speak to each other. I mean, I'll tell you, in my own life, I have two siblings. One, my older brother, is a diehard conservative. The other, my older sister, is a diehard liberal. And I don't agree fully with them on everything at all. But guess what? We still text almost daily to express, hey, this is what happened in my life. We love each other. We say that, we do that. You can sidestep those conversations in a way that allows you to keep peace, but you can also engage in those conversations with people who don't agree with you. If your goal is to indeed learn some things, understand why people think the way they think if they disagree with you. Just because someone disagrees with you on issues does not make them the enemy. We know who the enemy is, right, Rick? The enemy is not our brother, our sister, or the guy across the street. Our enemy is Satan. And that's, we can have conversations with people who don't agree with us on political issues. And that doesn't water down our views. We don't have to abandon our views. We should never abandon our values. But at the same time, we can articulate those in a way that is winsome, not loathsome or anger-inducing.
Hey, listen to, I should say, read Gary's Washington Times article. HigherGroundTimes.com is the place to go to. He's going to get a little more detailed as far as what we're talking about here, because, we can only keep him for just a matter of minutes. Gary, I'd love to talk to you when everything is said and done, and we'll kind of post-game, hey, this is what happened, and now this is how we move forward, no matter whom is in the White House in 2024 and beyond. Let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about the book. The last time we talked about your books, you had the 007 book, of course. I think you had a few books that we talked about. What's coming up for you personally, the rest of 24 and 2025?
Yeah, in the pipeline right now, being written as we speak. I mean, not as we speak. I'm not typing. I'm actually, just so you know, Rick, I'm giving you my full attention. I'm not writing a book in the background. But the next book that's coming out with my writing partner, James L. Nyber, a noted film historian, we're writing on the films of Burt Reynolds. So right now, I have just, so we trade off on chapters, and I've just, we're in the Burt Reynolds is the #1 box office star of the 70s and 80s era right now. And I just watched for review the Cannonball Run, which was, in my estimation, where I'm going to land on this in the chapter I write, is that Burt Reynolds' star in Hollywood was never higher, because the movie, while objectively not very great, while objectively had really no plot, was just a bunch of vignettes of people racing across the country and cracking jokes, and it was the 6th highest box office draw of that summer, and that was the year of sequels to Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars. So that's Burt Reynolds at his peak, and now we're going to get into, after this, where he starts to drop a little bit off, and he falls from box office favor. But the great thing about these, my friend Jim says this to me all the time, is that when you write about a subject and you spend as much time as we do researching the background, how the movies came to be, what the movies are about, and really dissecting the critical value of the movies, you really come to care for the people that you're writing about. And I have developed a whole new appreciation for Burt Reynolds and his wit and his easygoing charm. Every subject brings a new perspective on that. And then after this one, we have a contract we just signed 2 weeks ago for the Rocky film series. So we're going to do all 6 Rocky films.
Wow.
And then 2 of the Creed movies, because Stallone wasn't in the 3rd Creed movie. So we're looking forward to that, because Jim and I, since college, which is when our friendship started, have been big fans of Rocky. So we're looking forward to that. And we'll see what happens after that. But that'll be, so Burt will be the 5th book that we've written together, and Rocky will be the 6th.
Gary Schneeberger with us, and we got to snag you for that. Talk to you about those books. Burt Reynolds and Lonnie Anderson bought what are they calling that out there now? It was called Terra, and it's in Northeast Georgia, which in a town called Loganville. That's where I live. And back in the day, I guess it was the 80s when they were together. Was it the 80s,
Yeah.
the 90s? They bought a home out there, and there's a church in it now, believe it or not. And I've been in it and talked to the pastor and the leadership there, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
But yes, at that infectious laugh of Burt Reynolds, are you kidding?
Yeah.
And one of my favorite movies, probably Sharky's Machine, believe it or not. That wasn't I don't think it made a lot of money at the box office, but that was one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's coming up. I'm actually going to watch and review that in the next couple of films that are coming up. That was an early 80s, mid 80s release. And I have my own Burt Reynolds connection, Rick. I share a birthday with Burt Reynolds, not the same year, but we were both born February 11th, which I always thought was cool. That when Burt Reynolds was at his peak in the late 70s and early 80s, and I was a teenager and into my early 20s, I'm like, I have the same birthday as Burt Reynolds. That's pretty cool.
That is awesome. Love that. Well, let's talk about that again. We'll talk about post-election, and later on we'll talk about Burt Reynolds and the Rocky movies.
Yeah.
Wow, you're ringing some bells there. Gary Schneeberger, assistant to the president for media relations, focused on the family, author, speaker, and all-around great guy. And is that Iron Man on your lapel?
It is. Interesting story. The reason that I like Iron Man. I'm a big superhero nerd, but I co-host a podcast for a client that's not focused on the family, and it's about coming back from your worst days. It's called Beyond the Crucible, and we are celebrating on the 5th, interestingly, on Election Day, our 5th anniversary of the show. So I went back and watched the video of the first show, and this is the outfit I was wearing, right down to the pocket square and the Iron Man lapel pin. So I'm wearing the same outfit from the first episode 5 years ago. So,
wow. Love that. Hey, we got to talk more. I know you're a busy guy. Blessings to you and your family. You guys have a great Thanksgiving and also Christmas. I think we'll talk to you before Christmas.
Yes.
Hey, that's all the time we have for the show. Thank you so much for downloading the podcast and watching, of course, the show on YouTube and wherever you get your videos, and the podcast, faithtalkatlanta.com, or wherever you get your podcast. Next week, another great guest. Have a great week. I'm Rick Probst. This is Faith Talk Today. See ya.